Y'all know what it is.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to a very casual episode of Eggs. We are coming up on the holiday season, and between some scheduling conflicts on our end that we'll discuss, and scheduling conflicts on the ends of some of our clients, or not clients, but guests, we've had a number of cancellations and whatnot. So Mike and I decided we'd seize the opportunity to sit and visit, because unfortunately we don't get a lot of time to just sit and rap anymore. So we're going to do this show. It sounds like we'll have one more next week before the holiday break. And then, of course, we'll have the Eggies for you the week of the last week of the year, like we do every year. And so we're coming to the close of another fruitful year. This is going to be episode number 288, if you can believe that we're still recording Eggs after 288 consecutive weeks, more or less. And I think it's, pretty amazing. So, but it's, I think this would be a good opportunity to sort of talk about what's going on in life, because there's been some pretty exciting and new changes for Mike. And also just, kind of wrap up the year, put a pin in it.
Yeah. So I can't believe it's been 288 episodes. That's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, it's bonkers. I mean, it's more than 5 years of doing the show. I mean, we're reaching towards 6, in June, we'll hit 6 years. And it's pretty wild, and I'm very thrilled with how things are going. And it's been really interesting, as I sort of alluded to, this idea that there have been some changes recently for primarily our recording schedule, not so much our life, but Mike just took an opportunity with the radio station here in the area, and it's awesome. And I'm thrilled to death for him. So, but because now he has, a real person's job,
right? I can't just hang out anymore.
That Mike and I have always had. He unfortunately doesn't have the flexibility to just do whatever he wants, whenever he wants anymore. And so it's affected our schedule a little bit. And, luckily we're adapting, and it's not going to be a big deal going forward. But anyway, it's been interesting, because I will tell you one thing, Mike, your social media have become very entertaining to me. It seems like you're doing a lot of resharing and things like that, but the stuff that you're resharing makes me giggle almost every time. I will say, if I can levy a request though, sure. I'm told by my oldest son, Ethan, who is my resident social media expert, that it's just the nature of Instagram stories, but your clips always get cut off.
Oh, really?
Because they only go for like a minute or whatever. So if they're a minute 30, you lose the last 30 seconds or something. And so the problem is, it's kind of like getting all the build up to a joke and then missing a
joke.
And so I sit and I watch through your Instagram.
I'm going to start making clips just like that.
I watch these little
all build up. No.
And it's like, damn it. So I don't know, maybe TikTok will give you a little more flexibility or a little more time, but anyway, that's been something I've noticed. But nonetheless, now that you're having to be a responsible member of society and a representative of the radio station, it's your social media game's on point.
Well, I tell you, like, I was fighting social. We talk about this all the time on the show before. I just got rid of Facebook, got rid of all. Right, exactly that convo. And now I go to work, and part of I'm contracted. I have to do social media. That includes TikTok, and I swore that I would never even download it on my phone. And now they got me doing like live streams on TikTok. So it's
well, I will tell you, fun. So one of the things, and I don't know if people can just go find your TikTok, I don't know if you want to share it around or not, but they when you were doing your sort of interview process for this job at the radio station, you made these couple TikToks where it was basically you in the top third, the screen grab from Serato or something in the second sort of center section. And then at the bottom, it was like an overview of your turntables. So people could actually watch how you were lining up the tracks in Serato. They could watch how your hands were working the tool, and then they could watch sort of your face as you were working through it or talking to them. And I thought those clips were the most compelling crap ever. And I thought, if there's anything that's going to come from this whole experience, it's that he's going to leave the show so that he can go be a TikTok
influencer.
because those clips are so good. And for people who are trying to learn to be a DJ or whatever, like, I can imagine that content be wildly compelling for them. And so you've leveled up a ton, especially considering that it's something that you don't love having to do.
So that whole, like, I had to submit, a couple of, takes, like segues in between songs. Like this is what I'd talk about, and air checks, and then I had to do TikTok, and I had to do a bunch of different things just to apply for the job, and like I was running out of things to put on TikTok. I was like, what do I talk about? I'm 40 years old. What do I talk about on TikTok? So I was like, well, you know what? I'll just do a DJ tutorial and see what they say. And that was more of a flex than anything else. It was like I just wanted them to show that I could actually mix, and then see that I could edit, because that to be able to do the overlay with the Serato screen capture plus the turntables.
Yeah, get it all synced up and all that.
Get it all synced up. That's an editing kind of like a nightmare. And then to make it into a phone-sized screen to work on TikTok.
I have to imagine they're time consuming to make, but God, I bet if you did one of those a year on just like a DJ Ontic account, or not one a year, but like one a week, maybe. I mean, and they're probably, maybe it's too time consuming even to do that. Maybe you just have to record 30 of them in one set or something and then cut it up or something.
Well, the trick is having 3 different cameras going at the same time and having the rig set up, because the way I did it was I took the HD camera and I mounted it on a mic pole, and I put it like 6 feet above the turntable, and then I zoomed in on the turntable, and then I had one facing me, and then I had
the screen grab.
The screen grab. I can't remember what software I used for that, but it was.
It was very cool. I mean, the production quality was awesome, and like the music is cool, and like that whole thing, and like I mean, it's what you basically dedicated your life to. I mean, you've been a DJ for 20 years at this point or more, and it's like, I don't know, like it's cool to see the skill that goes into that stuff, right? Because I think a lot of people just think, I mean, they're like me. They think that, okay, well, I can buy the equipment, so now I'm a DJ, right? Like I can just, I can swing by Best Buy, put something on credit, and now I'm a DJ. And, and the software has made it easier maybe than ever for people to kind of fake it till they make it, they can buy, digital music and just play back digital edits that they just download from other people without having to actually create anything. And so, I mean, I think it's, it's a weird time for DJs, but I think that you could show that stuff. And I thought it was really cool.
So I got to say, I love people like you that do that go and buy the gear and, spend the thousands of dollars to do that.
Yeah, because you get to buy it secondhand.
I get to buy a secondhand on Craigslist for about a third the price, and it's still brand new.
Yeah, see, joke's on you, bro. My stuff's all gathering dust in a closet. That's how I showed you.
Yeah, that's how I bought I just bought a new Rain controller for gigs, because for the longest time, I'm bringing turntables and a mixer to every gig. And yeah, it does look really cool at a wedding to have a DJ rocking turntables, because all the other people there are like, I haven't seen that since the 70s. But I tell you what, the ease of just setting up a controller and just going is nice.
So, well, and they've come a long way too. I mean, this is probably like a lot of DJ talk maybe people won't care about, but like, I mean, I've been friends with Mike for a long time, so I've sort of seen the evolution of this stuff. And, when you do the old like Technics 1200s or whatever, and you've got the turntable, like the turntable itself hasn't evolved all that much. I mean, there's some, new techie versions of stuff, but the controllers have come like forever.
Yeah.
like with just sort of, I mean, it sounds really old to say, but sort of the advent of digital music and moving everything into streaming and all this kind of stuff. Like, and then I guess digital effects processing too, the ability to make it sound like you're scratching a record when you're not.
That has
all that stuff has come so far from when they were first doing it, and it still may not be great, but I mean,
so it's gotten really good. Like you can actually like fake scratch with what comes on like a Pioneer controller, right? But that in the DJ community, that's really frowned on. So like, don't do it. But like the controllers, I mean, some of them, like the new Pioneer, the Rain One, it feels almost like you're using a real turntable, and that the feel is what you're really going for. Because for me, whenever I jump on like CDJs or anything like that, I just would play it real easy. I wouldn't do anything crazy over the top, just because I don't really get to play on them that much, and B, the feel is just a little different. So I don't want to be like in a live environment and mess up.
I'm certainly not an expert or anything, but those CDJs, I remember those when those were starting to come out, and I never liked the spin on them. Like for people who don't have any idea what we're talking about,
the platter.
It's basically a little disc that spins around. It's about the size of a CD or something like that, but it doesn't have the same friction that like a piece of vinyl does, for example.
So
And
that's
so
that's what's different with the controllers now is like the Rain 1 has an actual thing that's like a record that you can pull off, and you can put a slip mat under it, and it's got a little, I don't know how it does it, but it can tell where it's at. And you know what's really cool? I just ordered these. I just like 3-4 days ago ordered these. They're called Phase, and they're called Phase CVS control vinyl type things. And what it is a magnet that you can put on your actual Tech 1200s, and it goes over where the center needle, like the record slides on. It's got that little spindle that sticks up. This magnet sits over the top of it, and it's got a accelerometer in it that as you're moving the record around, it eliminates the need for a needle. So you can use your Tech 1200s in a digital type thing.
That's cool.
So you don't have to. So like one of the biggest problems is like your needle gets dust on it, or it's starting to go bad, and you got dirty vinyl or something, and you have tracking issues. This is 100% digital, so the accelerometer, knows what's going on, and you'll see people actually picking up the record off the turntable and shaking it back and forth like that, and they can do like a little scratch kind of thing with it. So, I'm really excited to get those because I literally just set up my decks at the station to start recording mix shows for the station, and I've got my controller here at the house to be able to practice on that and make mixes here at the house. And so now I can do it at both places, and I don't have to worry about needles going bad there.
Well, and that's the thing. And I have to imagine, like you were saying, as we're kind of leading into this conversation, when you were doing that stuff on TikTok and trying to flex that you could actually edit and do all that stuff, like I have to imagine most people can't. Like, I mean, like even the people that you think of as, like a radio DJ, like it's just not the game it was in the 80s or the 90s or whatever, where people had to actually put a record on a piece of, on a platter and that's what they were playing over the radio. Instead, I mean, it's all digital. If you program anything at all, like it may all come from some central database,
So and a lot of the stations, they'll do like the club mixes type stuff, but they subscribe to a company that provides it to them. And what's different about me and a few stations in Seattle and a few other ones is that we actually do it. Yeah. So that way you can actually kind of stick to the format of the station, but switch it up a little bit too. Like, Taylor Swift's huge right now, but I can play a Taylor Swift track that is clubby, has more of a beat to it, and actually blend it in. So,
well, yeah, no, I mean, it's I think it's a really cool thing because it's funny. I mean, so we're talking about Mike having to do social media and not liking to be in doing social media. He's also working at a pop station, which is also not his thing.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of fun because it's pop stuff, I mean, I guess they play probably pop and R&B and some hip hop stuff, rap stuff, that kind of thing. It's kind of popular music, which isn't
it's just current hits, top 40.
And so, but the ability to do that kind of stuff is interesting. And I don't know, like this particular station that Mike is working for, and I guess, it's up to him if he wants to talk about it or say what it is. But the station back in the olden days, because it is sort of a local to Idaho, when I worked, I used to work in a semiconductor plant overnights. And on Friday night, it was Friday night or Saturday night or both, they used to have like a club night. And so from like, I don't know, 9 p.m. till midnight or something, it was, club music. And so they would play, all the remix stuff. And I don't know if they actually had somebody that could remix it or if they just bought a tape from somebody or what.
They bought a tape.
Yeah, I figured. But I really dug it. That was like my favorite part of the day. I didn't listen to the station the rest of the day. Like there's nothing else on their station that was like my jam. But Club 103 was like awesome. Like that was my favorite. And so I really enjoyed that. And so the fact that they've got somebody like you there who could actually do some editing and actually put together a mix on your own is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I'm real stoked. Mainly because, going into it, like being on air is cool. It's fun to talk about stuff. It's also kind of like I'm getting better at it. At first I was like real hesitant, like it's weird just knowing that, at any point in time, thousands of people could be listening to you. The other day we did this TikTok thing, and I'm hiding out somewhere and they have to come and find me kind of thing. And I started the TikTok live, and we had pre-recorded a couple of like breaks that said, "Hey, log into TikTok right now, figure out where Mike's at, and you could win some cash." And so when I started the live, 10 some odd people were watching. Then that ad aired, and it jumped from 10 to 100 to 150 to 300 to 350, and it just kept growing. And that to me kind of like really opened my eyes to like how many people actually are listening and how many people are, the power of radio. And
yeah, it's interesting because there's sort of this diss on radio these days that people don't listen, or that people don't, they're just listening to Spotify or they're whatever. But like, I think a lot of people still like their local radio station. They like music, or they want the local news, or they like, whatever it is that they enjoy about having a local thing. But I think there's still an audience for that.
I actually just did a segment on this. I was talking about it the other day, and it is still the most listened to avenue for music over any streaming platform, over YouTube, over Spotify, over Sirius. Radio is still number one. So, and mainly I think it's because everyone's in their car. Most people don't pay for Spotify or have the aux hookup, so they just tune into the station, jump in, and go. And so, out of all the platforms out there, radio still is king.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I believe it. I mean, even a day or two a week, like, I mean, as connected as I am, and I do have Spotify and I have Apple Music and I have Sync and everything, right? Like, and sometimes I'll just get in the car and be like, I don't want to reach over there to grab the cable. So I'll just, put on whatever's on,
Well, and then if you have that station with the morning show that you like, or the afternoon show that you like, or the people that are talking, and you kind of develop that connection, almost like this podcast. We have people that reach out to us and like, "Man, I love your show. I feel like I know you," kind of thing. And on air, it's the same way. It's like, it's weird. It's
true. I mean, my wife has a show down here that she loves. There's a station, and I can't stand them. I mean, I listen to these guys and I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, I can't sit through it. But she loves it, and that's her jam in the mornings. She just puts that on. She doesn't. I mean, same thing. She has Spotify. She has all that stuff, but she chooses. Oh, geez, this is a casual show.
Right.
But no,
as I drink coffee.
Yeah, she listens to that show every morning and just loves it, and it's part of. I mean, some of it's kind of cool because it's like local culture, so it's like what's happening in town, that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's interesting to hear some of that stuff. They cover a little bit of news and kind of funny stuff, or or whatever. So I mean, it's entertaining enough, and she enjoys it. But like, it's different than like a podcast. She might run into one of these personalities at like a local place, or she might do whatever. I mean, it ostensibly is a podcast. It's just a audio show being broadcast. I mean, ostensibly is the same. But yeah, I think there's something to being local and having the thing that you like locally. And so I think that there's some of that's habit, but I think some of it's just what people like.
Well, and then we also, I mean, like, as much grief as I give Facebook, that we have a group for the station, and it's a lot of the same people are commenting, a lot of the same people are interacting, and it's kind of interesting to, albeit virtually, meet these people, but you're starting to build relationships with locals here in the area, and it really makes me kind of like, as I'm driving the station car around, I'm thinking, well, I can't honk at this person right now. I have to just sit
Man, I want to flip that guy off. But
yeah, exactly. And the other day I got stuck behind a train track, and one of the arms didn't come up or down. And everyone was driving through this track because it was like a train backing up, and it just blocked it. And there's no one coming. So everyone was driving through. But I'm in the station car, so I can't drive through. So I sat there and waited a good half hour before I could get through that thing. But it was quite, it's funny.
Yeah, but it is funny. And I mean, if we want to try and, make kind of I don't know, I mean, to stick with our theme of being sort of a business centric show, or an entrepreneurial eccentric or a centered show, it's interesting because one of the sort of recurring themes or things that we land on a lot on this show is this idea of career pivots and moving around. And a lot of it, I mean, has been selfishly me talking about, what do I do and how do I move forward? And, basically just stream of consciousness, working through these ideas, in a live format here on the show. But like, what's so interesting about this is, I mean, Mike and I have been basically solopreneurs, almost our entire career. with a couple little stints here and there at different places. But, I think Mike was actually free longer than me, maybe.
Dude, I've been free for 20 years. Like
yeah,
working Friday and Saturday night
there,
only for 20 years. And let me tell you, getting up at 6:45 every morning and going to work and having to commute, I feel your pain, my man.
So, but I mean, it's like, so I guess the point I'm trying to make, though, is that doesn't take away from sort of your, or taking employment doesn't necessarily take away from being an entrepreneur or being a solo or being, any of these things. And, I mean, I sort of am trying to look at things more as sort of an evolutionary thing. We've talked about this on the show before, that you don't know what you don't know, and that everything is sort of a layer cake, right? Like there is no, like, if we've learned anything from our 260, 70 interviews, whatever it is, like it is that there is no shortcut to success. Everything is a build, and you don't just get to turn a corner and know everything. Like you have to build it up over time. And so, like, the fact that you got this position with the radio station, the only reason it worked out is because you spent the last 20 years on your own developing a skill set that worked for them, developing a ability to control the mic and to be able to, entertain, and to be able to, create music and edit video and all these things. I mean, it's really the only reason that this opportunity came into focus for you was because of all the work you'd done as an entrepreneur, as a solo guy. And, so I think it's really important to not look at it, because I've heard from some people before where it's like, okay, well, you're an entrepreneur and then you take a day job. It's like, oh, okay, well, now you're not one of us anymore. You're not, you've moved on. You're not one of us,
Well, so
I think it's just bullshit. So.
Agreed. Like, to each their own. If a job makes more sense for you, then take the job. Like for me, this is amazing. I have benefits. I've never had benefits. Like
and that's
I've
great
never
point.
Yeah, like just the ability to schedule a doctor's appointment and not fear it. It's quite nice. And
no, that's huge. And a lot of people, I mean, especially, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, people who have small businesses will totally relate to that. But like for people who just have work a day job and get benefits, like you don't realize how big a thing that is, because to try and do that privately is expensive. And so most people just end up not doing it. And so guys like Mike and me for a long time, luckily I get my benefits through my wife's job. But I mean, I had to pay for my own privately for a long time, and it was really expensive. Yeah. And so it's like, you eat up your entire income just to have health insurance, and then it doesn't work.
And rent on top of it, so it's like just being able to afford benefits is outrageous. And just the fact that I have them now, it's like this, oh, I got a mole. Is it cancer? Like what the heck, like,
well, it's just a big weight lifted off, right? I mean, just like car insurance or anything else. I mean, nobody likes having to pay for it, but the peace of mind that it brings and having that stuff, just so that, if an event happens, you're prepared, I mean, it's great. I mean, I mean, hopefully this isn't putting too much out there, but I mean, like you would go to your friend who was a dentist for dental work because he'd hook you up because you didn't have insurance and it was too costly to go see a regular dentist.
Well, so pay for a lot of that has to do with we're homies, and we like it's good to actually link up with him. But you're right. He
I have a vague memory of a time when you were packing a cavity with gum until you could get up to see him. And so, I mean, granted, this was some years ago and everything, but I mean, but so, I mean, yes, you're homies, but at the same time, your average person with a cavity might have just gone and seen a dentist. And so, but you put it off until you could see a guy who would help you, hook it up. And so whether it's a matter of financial or a matter of just, social time with your buddy, the point is for many entrepreneurs, they're forced to make a decision like that. Can I afford to get my health care? Can I afford to see my doctor? Can I afford to do whatever? And, and to not have to make that decision has got to be liberating for you.
Yeah, it's really nice. And I would counter that it's not, it's not me, I have to take a 9 to 5. This 9 to 5 and the ability for me to work for this station, I feel is going to open a lot more doors for my business. When I took the job, I told him, hey, I've got 12, 13 weddings lined up this summer that I have to be able to do. And if I can't do them, I can't take this job because I'm already contracted and I've taken deposits on these. And if I can't afford to return the deposits, so one way or another, I have to do these gigs. And so as a stipulation, they made it work where I can go and do those weddings. And then also being in the public spotlight and being able to provide lighting and provide gear and do all this other stuff, I think it's just going to open doors down the road. So.
Well, it can't help but do that, And so I've been trying to look at stuff because we talked a little bit about it on the show too, but in addition to sort of transitioning my role in my own business, I'm moving into a basically an executive role in another business. And, and so it's critical import that I'm giving them the time and resources that they need from me, while at the same time trying to make this change in my business. That's sort of, because this is all sort of fresh. And, having to do this stuff, like, I think initially, before I was really leaning into this, because, like I say, we've talked a lot about this idea of career pivot and stuff like that. But I think in my head, when I thought of a career pivot, I thought of a pivot like you're walking in one direction and then you pivot and you're going a different direction, right? Like there's a hard break and you're on to the next thing. And I think what I'm starting to realize, and maybe this is your experience too, is that it's more fluid than that. Like it's not so much about, and for some people, maybe it is just a cut off, I don't want to be a restaurant worker anymore. Now I want to work in the factory or whatever, maybe for some people it is that. But I think what my experience is that it's been just almost like another step in the same direction. Right. So it didn't take me off course. It didn't screw anything up. It wasn't any of the things that I feared in trying to make a transition. Instead, it was literally just one more step forward in the same direction, and it sort of lends itself to that stupid kind of half quote that I really should just write out and make sure I get like,
you need to like print it on the back wall.
Well, because I just say it's stupid. Like, there's probably a nice grammatically way to say this, or more grammatical way to say it. But, but it's just this idea that there are no wrong steps, right? That it took every step every step I've ever taken to get to where I am right now. Right. And the idea is that every step that you took over the last 20 years in buying equipment and learning new skills and, all the hard work and the late nights and all the stuff that you did basically netted out so that you could do this thing today. Yeah. Right. Like without all that experience, and maybe there's other ways in, but without that experience, generally speaking, like you wouldn't have been prepared for the position. Yeah. And same thing with what I'm experiencing. I spent, whatever it is, 17 years or whatever, since 2005 running my business and, in one form or another. And now here I am going into this executive role for another company, but there was no possibility of making that happen if it hadn't been for 17 years of developing all the skills that I needed. Right. And maybe somebody would have pulled it out through college or through some other model, but it doesn't make my way wrong. And it doesn't make your way wrong,
Yeah. Well, and like you've listened to the show, I just went through a coding boot camp, right? So does that mean that was a wasted effort? Does that mean that the landscaping gig 2 years ago was a wasted effort? No, that's learning. That's like building. That's growing. And the coding boot camp, I still code when I get home at night. It is a little harder after a long shift to want to open the computer and actually do it, but I still want to grow at that. I still have projects I want to work on my own. And
and if nothing else, let's say your employer says, hey, we need a new website, let's hire a guy. Mike is going to be able to talk to that guy and walk him through what they need and do it in a technical way, because now you've got the foundational knowledge. Right? It was always a strong suit that I had when I used to work in agency, because I was the one guy that could sort of bridge the gap technologically between the older guys who were designers and the younger guys who were the tech guys, who were the developers. Like I was just the right age to have picked up enough technical knowledge along the way that I was able to bridge that gap between them. Yeah. But without that, I couldn't have been that person. I couldn't have facilitated that, and it's sort of what's happening now. The company that I'm working with now largely is, we're developing software. I've been working on user interfaces and all this stuff for software. And we've got a development team that's doing the building and all that kind of stuff. Right. So I'm having to bridge my design abilities with their technical abilities and figure out how to talk to them in a way that makes sense, so that the things that we're creating or designing actually work within the frame of the software they've developed. Yeah. And so, but I couldn't have done that 15 years ago or 20 years ago if I hadn't had that experience in agency where I was bridging this gap, or if I hadn't grown up in the time, the time precisely when, if you wanted to be online, you had to learn HTML. Yeah. If it hadn't been for that kind of stuff, I wouldn't have had the foundation. And
if it wasn't for MySpace, I wouldn't know HTML.
That's right. Because you had to learn how to make a custom thing. So,
I still love that. Right.
That's awesome. Well, no. So anyway, so I think if we want to try and make, kind of a business tie to what's going on, I think that's it. Right. Or I mean, that's how it stays true to what we've sort of preached on the show and all that stuff, is that it seems to me that life is kind of this layer cake of stuff, and everything is additive. There's basically no back steps, right? There's no going backwards. It's just another layer of frosting or whatever until it becomes this gross, too much frosting in cake. But I guess you could start adding new layers of cake or something. But but the metaphor is basically that there was no shortcut to getting to what you're doing now, and I don't think it's like, somehow a negative that you're doing this sort of thing, when I think there are sort of the entrepreneurial elites who just couldn't imagine going back to work for somebody. I mean, I think it actually takes bravery, and I think it actually takes, it actually kind of is the fruit of the labor, right? Yeah. I mean, it is the thing that you earned after putting in all the effort.
Well, so, I mean,
I think it's pretty slick.
Being able to mix for a station is fun, and it is a lot of work. I mean, they're going to be having me do it 4 hours, 2 nights a week, which is going to be pretty significant workload. But, it's the culmination of practice,
like, just think about the cassette tape that you replaced and you're going to be fine. Whatever you put together will be great.
Right.
So, but hopefully they're bringing back that club night, because I used to love that thing. Yeah. So I tell them to put it online so I can download it or something. I love that.
I don't know if I can tell you or not. I won't, and then I'll tell you in a few weeks.
Okay. All right, fine. So anyway, so that's the exciting stuff that's going on in Mike's world these days. And I don't know, Mike, is there anything else you want to go over? I mean, really, that's I think the big news in life. I mean, we could probably talk a little bit about, just sort of the end of the year and stuff like that. I mean, this has been a really interesting year, and actually the last couple of years have been really interesting in terms of navigating life and keeping the show going and all that stuff. And I think, as we come to this time of the year, I tend to get a little bit more like gratitude for what's going on and just thinking about that. And, I mean, there was a little murmur about, do we keep the show going? Are we going to be able to keep going if you've got this job and that kind of stuff? And I mean, you said to me, we've already put in all the work. Like, I don't want to get rid of it. I've been doing it. And, and secretly, I mean, that's where I was at too. I wasn't looking to get rid of it. I mean, we'd have figured out a way to carry on, but I mean, it just, I'm very grateful that, not only for you just as a human being, were you able to get this job that I think is going to make for a better quality of life and give you some opportunities and open some doors that I think are just going to be like stuff we're not even thinking about. But also just the fact that we're able to keep doing this together. And I mean, I've lived in Utah almost 10 years now. And, so, I mean, we went from seeing each other pretty regularly to not seeing each other in person very often. And, so this is like our one touch base, so without this, like, I'd never see you. Yeah. So I'm really grateful to have this show and have this opportunity to do that. And, also just really grateful for the guests who give us time and come on here and share their experiences and all that stuff. And, I won't give too much away about next week's guest, but the dude's great and awesome. And I can't even wait to talk about it. Like, he's going to be amazing. So
it'll actually be probably the highlight show of the year, because the caliber of people he's worked with. I'm just going to say it. Prince. He worked with Prince. So there's that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, he's great. And I guess what's funny about it is, like, he's just lucky we're lazy and he's sneaking into the Aggies deadline. I mean, I'm not going to say he's a shoe-in or anything. I mean, we'll see how he is on the air, but but the Aggies deadline is rapidly approaching. So we're going to be making decisions on this year's catalog, and he's going to sneak right in there. So we'll see if he makes the cut. So So anyways, that'll be pretty cool.
I just want to say to any guest that has scheduled and had to reschedule due to my schedule change, I apologize, and we still want to have you on the show. And thank you for being patient with us, because that is.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good comment to make, because, I mean, everybody's been very cool with it and understanding of what's going on. But I mean, basically, just to give a little peek behind the curtain of the show, I mean, we're basically booked 2 shows a week from now until the end of March next year, 2023. And that's as of, mid-December right now. We've actually been booked into February and stuff since like October. And, so, I mean, our show stays pretty well booked and all that stuff. But the problem is with our new schedule, we basically have had to cut our production in half, right? So we're going to be doing one show a week instead of two, and which is fine in terms of delivering a show every Thursday, like we always have for the last 5 years. But it cuts off about 50% of the people who've already signed up to come do the show. And so there are a bunch of people who are getting bumped, and I'm keeping a running list of them so that we can invite them back whenever there's little pockets here and there, because we definitely want to make sure we take care of some of those people. And there's some exciting people in the list. So in fact, I'm actually kind of bummed out about the guy who couldn't show today, because it was going to be a very interesting conversation. So anyway, so big things ahead, and looking forward to next year, because there's going to be some cool stuff.
Definitely. So, well, thanks for sticking around with us, guys. It's been a long stretch of shows, and if you've listened since the beginning, thumbs up.
Yeah, we appreciate it more than you guys could know. And I mean, even while my wife continues to call this my hobby and continues to give me crap about doing a podcast every week and all this stuff,
you know what, this hobby, it's open doors for you and it's open doors for me. So she can
for me, there are a few
hobby all you want.
Yeah, for me, there are a few things I enjoy doing more than this. And, some people go play golf and we do a podcast. That's what we do. So it's something that we really enjoy, and we're really grateful for the support of everybody who tunes in. And I mean, I just, not to get too like sentimental or whatever at the end of the year, but I mean, really grateful for all that time, and, everybody who's willing to spend that hour a week with us. Cause I mean, not only is it a time commitment for us, in terms of just what it takes to produce a show and booking and managing guests and all this kind of stuff, but the other half of that is the time that you guys commit to listening to it. So we really appreciate all that stuff, and look forward to big things in 23. So I guess that's it for this week. We'll see you guys next week with our next guests, who will drop more information on next week. And then we will have the Eggies at the end of the year, and that'll be that. So make sure you tune in for all that stuff. We're going out with a bang like we do every year. And grateful to have you along for the ride.